What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So this is a video request that I got from one of my subscribers, and they wanted me to give my opinion as to who I thought was the better of these two players, Dave Cowens or Kevin Mchale. And to be quite honest with you, I've never tried to compare these two. I've never tried to do it in my head. And I've never been asked to do so. So, this is a first. And you might come to a different conclusion than I. But let's start with scoring. All right. Dave Cowens averaged 17.6 points per game in his career. Kevin Mchale averaged 17.9. However, it has to be remembered that for many years, Kevin Mchale came off the bench, which means that he played fewer minutes. So that affected his career scoring average, obviously. Dave Cowens had two seasons averaging over 20 points per game. His highest average being 20.5 points per game on 45.2% shooting from the floor. Whereas Kevin Mchale, once he became a full-time starter, which I think was around the 85-86 season, he had 5 consecutive seasons averaging at least 20 points per game, and his high being 26.1 during the zenith of his career in 1986-87. And during that time period, matter of fact, let's just look at his best season. 26.1 points per game that year. He led the league in field goal percentage at 60.4% from the floor. So, peak for peak, Kevin Mchale was a better scorer overall. And, as far as putting in the basket much more efficient. And as we know, Kevin Mchale is considered one of the two greatest low post scorers in the history of the game, the other being Hakeem Olajuwon. And you could argue that when it comes to low post scoring, Mchale may be the very best in the history of the NBA. When he got it going, he was virtually unguardable. So, scoring is, even though Dave Cowens could score to a certain extent, Kevin Mchale was on another level. So scoring goes to Kevin Mchale. Playmaking. Now, this is where I think I give the edge to Dave Cowens. Kevin Mchale, just from the numbers, his highest assist season was 2.7 in 87-88. He never cracked 3 assists per game. Kevin Mchale was not noted for being a guy that passed the basketball. Once he got it, his mentality was to score. They often called him the black hole because once he got the ball, he rarely looked to pass it. Rarely. But Dave Cowens, on the other hand, in an era where centers, played positional basketball, played their position, didn't always have the offense running through them. He did showcase some ability to play, make, and pass. And matter of fact, he had 6 seasons in a row averaging at least 4 assists, with his career high being 5 assists a game. Coming in 1976-77, he averaged 5 assists per contest. And so when it comes to passing the basketball and even some playmaking, Dave Cowens wins that matchup wins it easily. Rebounding. Now, Kevin Mchale wasn't an awful rebounder. And some of his earlier years are skewing some of his numbers because he didn't start. But from 85, I'm just looking at his minutes. From 85, I say from 84 to 91, he averaged 8.4 rebounds per game. Now, keep in mind, though, that he also shared the front court with Robert Parrish, and Larry Bird was a good rebounder as well. So he had to kind of share rebounding duties. And plus, he was never the strongest. Excuse me. Kevin McHale was never, to me, a guy that, like, he really got the ball. When he got rebounds, it was generally when the ball went to him. He wasn't really, from what I've seen, he wasn't the best at boxing out when it came to rebounds. He did get because of his long arms and because of his height, he got some rebounds, but he wasn't the most skilled rebounder. He wasn't the most skilled rebounder. But Dave Cowens, on the other hand, through hustle, even though he was undersized, through hustle and his rebounding ability and toughness. You gotta be tough when you're down there, especially back in that era. Dave Cowens averaged 13.6 rebounds per game. And from 1970 to 1978, he averaged an incredible 15.2 rebounds per contest, though he never led the league in rebounding. Curiously, he never led the league in rebounding, but from that period of time, he was always amongst the league leaders. So, by a decisive margin, rebounding goes to Dave Cowens. Defense. Well, that encompasses defense. Defense. Dave Cowens wasn't a slouch on defense, obviously. He was 3 times All-NBA second team, and once in 1976, NBA All-Defensive first team. But I would give the edge to Kevin McHale. Excuse me. 3 times NBA All-Defensive first team, 3 times NBA All-Defensive second team, and he may have been on more first teams had he started earlier in his career. And plus, Kevin McHale was with his length, he was a superior shot blocker than Dave Cowens. I don't think Cowens was much of a shot blocker. Let me see. He didn't count blocks for much of his career, but the highest he ever averaged was 1.3 blocks that we know of. Where with Kevin McHale, I want to say it was 2.5, 2.7 or something. The most blocks Kevin McHale averaged, .3. So it's a little bit closer than I thought, but the edge still goes to Kevin McHale as far as defense is concerned. Just his size. Charles Barkley said that Kevin McHale gave him the most fits as far as trying to initiate offense against him or score against him because of his length and size. It was just it was a nightmare having to deal with Kevin McHale. And by the way, also, I should have mentioned offensively, Kevin McHale gave defensive players nightmares when they were trying to guard him down low. I think that many defenders called having to guard Kevin McHale, they referred to it as a torture chamber, if I'm not mistaken. So offensively, it's a landslide for McHale. Defense, the edge goes to McHale. I'm trying to think of other things to talk about. Athleticism, neither guy really was known for that. I'll just call it a wash. By default, McHale, I would just give it a wash for both guys. Hustle, Dave Cowens, absolutely. Dave Cowens is a guy that you could argue maximize his talent, whereas some people feel like Kevin McHale didn't totally maximize his potential outside of scoring. I know Larry Bird said that. So, hustle, Dave Cowens, leadership, Cowens, trying to avoid everything as far as talking about other stuff other than championships. Can't really talk about ball handling. We're talking about post players in the 70s and 80s. Although, let me see something. Yeah, neither one turned the ball over much. Free throw shooting. Let's see, Dave Cowens 78.3%. Mchale 79.8%. So both are great foul shooters. Yeah, so I guess we're gonna have to go to resume. And to be honest with you, two-time NBA champion for Cowens, MVP in 1973, eight-time NBA All-Star, All-Star Game MVP in 1973, three-time All-NBA second team, once All-NBA first team, two-time NBA All-Defensive second team, three times All-NBA second team. Okay, I said it already. Rookie of the Year 1971, All-Rookie Team 1971, Anniversary Team 50th and 75th, number 18 retired by the Boston Celtics. And you go to Mchale, three-time NBA champion, seven-time All-Star, All-NBA first team, three-time NBA All-Defensive first team, three-time NBA All-Defensive second team, two-time Six-Man of the Year winner, NBA All-Rookie first team, 50th and 75th anniversary teams, number 32 retired by the Boston Celtics. You know what? 17.9 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, 1.7 blocks per game. Cowens, 17.6 points per game, 13.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists per game. Even though I think that Kareem should have won MVP in 73 over Dave Cowens, but I know why they did it, because they won 68 games, but they lost in the conference finals, I think, to the Knicks that year. He was an 8-time All-Star to Mchale 7. You look at the All-Star Game MVP. You look at the Rookie of the Year award, and most importantly, the MVP award. I think off the strength of the Rookie of the Year award, the All-Star Game MVP, the one more All-Star selection, and the league MVP, I'm going to give the edge to Cowens. I still think Mchale was possibly the better player, but those awards, I think, give Dave Cowens the edge as far as his career, and then therefore I got to give him a small edge over Kevin McHale. So I'm going to go with Dave Cowens. Plus, you could argue that with John Havlicek, even though he didn't win Finals MVP, you could argue that Dave Cowens was like a co-captain, with John Havlicek, whereas Larry Bird was pretty much the unsung leader of those teams in the 80s. So that's another thing that make me. I'm gonna give it to Dave Cowens. I think Dave Cowens was the better player, but not by much. But tell me what you guys think.